In December 2016, a Korean-born Australian ambassador was appointed to Korea for the first time since the two countries established diplomatic ties. Having left Korea when he was 4 years old, James Choi returned to the country of his birth as the Australian ambassador.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome. 손님 여러분 안녕하십니까? 호주에 날 오신 것을 환영합니다.
Since the Korea-Australia FTA, the bilateral trade volume has been increasing steadily, making the relationship between the two countries more important than ever before. Ambassador Choi is working hard to strengthen bilateral cooperation in the fields of education, finance, and tourism, and further bolstering diplomatic ties. We'll hear about the future of Korea-Australia relations envisioned by the first Korean-born Australian ambassador, James Choi, on today's Heart to Heart. Ambassador Choi, thank you so much for joining us on Heart to Heart today. Before we begin, would you like to say hello to our viewers?
Certainly. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here on Heart to Heart on Ari랑TV. I'm James Choi, the Australian Ambassador to Korea. It's a pleasure to be on this program.
Thank you once again for being with us today. Now, Ambassador, I heard that this is not your first time coming to Arirang?
That's correct.
Yes.
When I was a junior officer in Korea in 1996, I recall accompanying my ambassador at the time to the launch of Ari랑TV. So it was a pleasure to attend that ceremony. I never thought that Arirang would become so large scale and widely viewed. So it's a pleasure to come back into acquaintance with Arirang during this interview.
I
So
see.
congratulations to Arirang.
Oh, well, thank you. Oh, wow. So you were here when Arirang was actually born.
Yes, I saw it when it was basically starting up. So 20 years on, I can see that Arirang has become bigger and better.
Yes, and I hope we become even bigger and bigger.
Indeed.
Now, it's already been 6 months since you came to Korea, since December of 2016. So what have you been doing ever since you came to Korea?
Setting up life in Seoul, first of all. I've come here with my wife, so setting up my life, building up my connections, networks, getting a focus on my work priorities, but also getting a better understanding of what's actually happening in Korea and on the Korean Peninsula.
Yes.
Since I arrived, we've had a presidential election. The North Korea continues to emerge as a major issue on the Korean Peninsula. And the regional dynamics is something that is a major focus for me.
Yes. So you have been very active in various projects since you were appointed as Australian ambassador to Korea. Now, I believe you're keenly interested in economic cooperation between our two countries, Australia and Korea. And bilateral trade between our two countries reached $36 billion last year.
That's great.
And Korea is Australia's fourth largest trading partner. But there has been criticism about investments in trade between the two countries, kind of concentrated in only one select area. So what is your thought on that claim?
I'm not too concerned about the focus of trade at the moment. Australia is resource rich. We provide coal, iron ore, liquefied natural gas to Korea. We provide the resources that fuels Korea's economic growth. And a lot of it goes into steelmaking, energy, which in turn allows Korea to export manufactured goods such as cars, LG phones, Samsung TVs.
Yes.
So it's a very complementary relationship.
Yeah.
I think the criticism we can put to the bilateral relationship is that there's much more scope to diversify the trade, to look at our competitive advantage in our respective areas, especially in science and technology, research, Australia's very advanced service sectors. So we've got a very strong economic base. It's the opportunity to further diversify the relationship.
Yes.
And I think we've got that opportunity now because in 2014 we signed a bilateral free trade agreement. It reduces tariffs, increases access to both our respective markets. There's significant opportunities to further expand and also diversify the trade relationship.
You just mentioned that Australia has very advanced service sectors.
Yes.
But most Australia-Korea trade is taking place in the goods sector. So what is your take on the need to expand investment and trade in the service sector?
That's going to be the scope for the future trade relationship in services. Australia's economy is actually based on services. It's a misperception that Australia is a resource economy. Resources only accounts for around about 8% of our GDP. Services actually accounts for 80% of our GDP. And we have advanced sectors such as our accounting firms, our law firms, our medical sector, our financial firms. We have world competitive companies in those fields. There's much scope to further enhance our cooperation on the services sector, providing Australian expertise in building up Korea's capacity in those areas. So I'm very keen to explore the scope to further develop our cooperation in the services field.
And are there any other areas, other than the service sector, that require bilateral economic cooperation? And if there happens to be, which areas are they?
I think it's a part of the services sector, but it's an area that I think requires further development. It's the financial services sector. Australia's, for a population of only 24 million, has the fifth largest pool of superannuation of pension fund investments in the world. We have significant expertise in managing pension funds. And as Korea's population ages, there's a huge demand for managing Korea's future pension funds. Australia has that expertise, and I'm certainly keen in developing those contacts so that Australian expertise can help Korea address the ageing population issue and especially addressing Korea's pension needs. The other area I'm very keen on is developing the investment relationship. Two-way investment at the moment is quite encouraging because our two-way trade in goods is now 36 billion, but for the first time in our relationship, our investment, two-way stock of investment has reached $38 billion. So it means that more Korean companies are investing in Australia and more Australian companies are investing in Korea. And that really reflects a sense of confidence in each other's economy, that it's not just trading goods, but we're actually investing in assets in each other's countries. So further building that investment relationship is also a key opportunity. And again, under the bilateral free trade agreement, it opens up opportunities to further enhance our investment relationship.
And I understand that there is one more agenda that is important to you, which happens to be cooperation in national defense. Now, you are also serving as non-resident ambassador to North Korea from Seoul. So you must have a great interest in North Korean issues. Is there any particular reason for your emphasis on the importance of defense cooperation?
Well, you've noted North Korea. North Korea continues to pose a threat to the stability on the Korean peninsula. Korea is our third largest export market and our fourth largest trading partner. North Korea, the nuclear issue of North Korea impacts on the regional dynamics, including our largest export market, China, and our second largest export market, Japan. So Australia's got strong interest in contributing to the regional stability of Northeast Asia. One of the aspects that I'm very keen on developing is looking at our defence ties with South Korea to, as I said, contribute to stability on the Korean peninsula, but also to see how we can work with Korea in addressing some of the major challenges we face in the region, especially with the rising China, United States administration that is still feeling its way in engaging with Asia, and obviously with Japan playing a greater role in the region. I think it's incumbent on liberal Western democracies such as Korea and Australia, with very similar interests on trade, on security, on protecting freedom of trade, but also the rules of the road, the international liberal order. There's much scope for Australia and Korea to really cooperate together to navigate our way through these very uncertain times.
Now, the United States and Australia are the two countries that partner with Korea in the so-called 2+2 talks. Is that correct? The joint meetings of foreign affairs and national defense ministers. So this indicates that the two countries need to really work closely on global and security issues. So what is your take on this? Is there something you would like to add?
Well, it's the centrepiece of our strategic cooperation between Korea and Australia. We want to advance strong defence and strategic dialogue, but also enhance our defence ties, and ultimately look at how we can further cooperate with our defence forces to send a strong message that we're working closely together as like-minded countries in the region to contribute to regional security, to send a strong message that we want to continue to protect, as I said, the rules of the road, the liberal international order, and that we're willing to play a strong role in protecting regional security, not just on the Korean Peninsula, but also in the Indo-Pacific region more generally.
Okay, well, we will continue our talk in just a bit. Joining us on today's Heart to Heart is Australian Ambassador to Korea, James Choi. Now, he has kept himself very busy since he has come to Korea, so let's watch him in action. A hotel in the Junggo district of Seoul. A car bearing the Australian flag pulls in. And here's Ambassador James Choi. There must be a special event taking place here.
60석 정도 마련되었습니다. 호주에서 되게 많이 오셔가지고
반갑습니다.
He is here today to attend the Global Korean Convention 2017, along with some 150 specialists from 17 countries. It's a special gathering of Korean academics and civic activists from around the world.
To discuss the lives of the Korean overseas, the issues that they face, and I'm very encouraged that the agenda is not just about the broader Korean society, but also in particular the issues related to Korean women and Korean adoptees. As a 1.5 generation Korean migrant, it's very encouraging to see that there's extensive research and greater attention to these issues facing Koreans overseas. So I'm here to support the convention, but also, as I said in my introductory remarks, I'm fascinated to see what the discussions entail and the policy recommendations that they'll develop for both Korean governments, but also governments overseas.
반갑습니다.
그래서-
좋은 역할 하고 계시고요.
먼저 먼저 가겠습니다.
예. 되길 바랍니다. 예. 반갑습니다.
Ambassador Choi is a well-known figure among Koreans living abroad. Time flew by, even though he's only exchanged greetings.
나보다라고 생각할 수 있겠지만 오히려 또 같이 최 대사님을 먼저 자리에 모시겠습니다. 모두 박수로 환영 부탁드립니다.
I understand that there are around about 7 million Korean diaspora throughout the world. It's a pleasure to see academics from Australia, New Zealand, and I understand also from Europe attending this convention. But as the Australian ambassador, I do want to pay a particular warm welcome to the Australian academics. I think the Korean diaspora will play a much more important role. So I personally appreciate the challenges of Koreans travelling to another country and setting up life in another country. Thank you very much and best of luck with the conference.
Were the Koreans here able to relate to his heartfelt message?
It was very nice to hear from an ethnic Korean ambassador who grew up in Australia. And he grew up as a Korean in Australia, and now just like many second generation ethnic Koreans.
For me who live in Australia, to see Ambassador Choi sort of is a symbolic visual to more sophisticated and mature relationship between Australia and Korea. And he's also a very well established and respected diplomat in his own right.
James Choi, the first Korean-born Australian ambassador, has become the pride of Koreans overseas. His efforts will strengthen the ties between the two countries. You are the very first Korean-born ambassador of Australia to Korea. Now, since, of course, the Australia and Korea formed diplomatic relations in 1961. Yes. So I know that the Korean people welcomed you with open arms, and I'm sure that you being here has a very special meaning for you as well. Yes. So what was it like to return to Korea?
It's a privilege to be back here in Seoul as the Australian ambassador. I left Korea when I was 4 years old, migrated to Australia. I never ever would have thought that I would have come back as ambassador, but it's a privilege to be here and it's an honour to represent Australia here in Korea.
Yes, and you've been here several times. You've paid visits.
That's correct.
Yes.
I have visited Korea numerous times for work, but also I worked here as a junior officer at the Australian Embassy from 1995 to 1997. So I know Korea quite well.
Yes.
And also I have lots of relatives still in Korea.
Yes, sure. But you, as you mentioned, you left Korea when you were just 4 years old.
That's
only
correct.
4.
That's
Do you have any memories of your childhood, of your...
I do.
Yes, you
I
do?
still remember my grandmother's house in Suzek. I remember playing in my grandmother's house and distinct memories of my grandmother, my grandfather, and all my aunts and uncles. We had large extended families.
Yes.
But then also my father was in the military. He was a helicopter pilot in the Korean Army.
Oh.
And so I remember moving from base to base, moving to Gwangju and Daegu, and the constant trips we made from moving from military base to military base. So I've still got fond memories, clear memories of my life in Korea when I was a child.
Yeah, I think it's the same for almost everyone. You have fond memories of, your grandparents, spending time with your relatives, especially cousins, when you're little.
Yes.
All right, so what did you think of the Korea you returned to, though, when you returned this time? Was it as you expected? Was it any different? Was there anything that impressed you the most?
Well, I worked here from 1995-97, so that's my clear, distinct memory of Korea. It was just before the Asian financial crisis.
Yes.
But the thing I've noticed coming back to Korea now is the sheer scale of economic growth. Some parts of Seoul are unrecognizable. As an example, the Australian Embassy in the Kyobo building in Gwanghwamun, and just behind there, I remember Pimakgol, which is 20 years ago was narrow alleyways, little hanokjibs, beautiful little restaurants. Now, coming back 20 years on, it's a huge high-rise.
Yes.
No remnants of those beautiful old houses. Those old narrow alleyways are now replaced by very modern shops, cafes and restaurants and high-rises.
Do you like it? Or would you rather have seen the narrow alleyways and the hanoks still waiting for you to maybe pay another visit?
I do reminisce on those wonderful experiences I had, but I don't think you can stop progress.
That's true.
And certainly I think the modern Seoul is amazing in terms of its vibrancy, its energy, but also the wonderful mix of Korean and overseas influences. Seoul is a major city, a very cosmopolitan city. It certainly is a city that competes with any other city in the world.
So did you have the chance to travel a lot, or are you mostly on the go visiting this part and that part of Korea because of work? Is it all work-related, or do you actually have time to travel?
Most of my work is in Seoul, and that's certainly occupied a lot of my time. But I've had a chance to visit some of the cities in Korea. I've been to Busan twice. I've been to Jeju a couple of times, all for work meetings, unfortunately, so I haven't had the time to really take a holiday. But Busan has been for a few launches of ships built in Korean dockyards that will be taken to Australia and be placed on Australia's gas fields to process the gas, which will then be shipped and exported throughout the region, including Korea. So that's another example of economic complementarity between our two countries. And I've been to Jeju twice, once for the Jeju Forum and just recently also for the Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank meeting.
So you were in Jeju for, of course, 2 reasons. Could you tell us about how you attended the Jeju Forum?
Yes. I was invited to deliver a speech at an ambassadors roundtable at the Jeju Forum, focusing on regional security, the regional dynamics, how diplomats in Korea viewed North Korea, and also how the relationship between the United States and China will pan out. So it was a pleasure to be there, but also it was fascinating to see all the other participants that attended. Al Gore was the keynote speaker, and we had former presidents, former prime ministers attending as well. So it's a high-level forum. It was certainly very impressive.
This forum has become, over the years, a truly exemplary gathering for a multilateral dialogue on peace and prosperity, with a focus on diplomacy and its task in providing a space for international collaboration throughout East Asia and Asia on foreign policy issues and environmental issues, security issues, and economic issues.
And are there any places that you visited for the very first time, places that you haven't been to before? Are there any places that particularly stick to your mind that you remember?
Well, I have to say that going to Choi was impressive. The sheer scale of the shipyards, the Daewoo and Samsung shipyards are absolutely incredible. I don't know if your viewers have been there, but the scale, the size of the shipyards, but also the scale and size of the ships that they're building and the advanced technology, the sheer industry, the size of the industry and how it's developed is certainly a testament to those companies, but also the people of Korea to actually have built this industry literally from scratch. They're very, very impressive operations.
So you lived in Korea until you were 4 years old, and you grew up in Australia. So I guess this kind of gave you the chance to understand both cultures because you know about these two countries. So it must have given you that edge on understanding the cultures of each country. Would you say that there are strengths of the Korean people that are hard to find among Australians?
I wouldn't say it's... I'll point to one strength that Koreans have, but it's not so much that Australians don't have it, it's just that Koreans have more of that strength.
Okay.
I think it's this sense of hard work and getting things done. I see Korean students and see how hard they study to try to get into university. I see how hard they need to study to do all the exams to get a good job. That sense of determination and strength of will is quite amazing, and I do admire it. Frankly, if I had to study in Korea, I think I would have failed miserably because I don't think I would have had the diligence to go through the amount of study that you need to be able to succeed in those exams. But Australians work hard, but it's just that Korean students, I think, work extremely hard. And as I said, I don't think I could even possibly aim to compete.
All right, then what would be the strengths of Australians?
I think Australia has this amazing mix of dedication but also creativity. We have a very balanced lifestyle in Australia. We value academic success, but at the same time we value a sense of balance, and it gives us a sense of creativity, which I think is a wonderful mix. I'm Australian, so I'm very proud of that mix, but it's reflected not just in our arts, our music, our famous actors and actresses in Hollywood, but also in things like science and technology. I think it's not often understood or very rarely known that Australia's produced 16 Nobel Prize winners. We've had recent Nobel Prize winners in fields such as physics, in medical science, in literature. So it's that wonderful sense of creativity that drives a sense of innovation in Australia.
I see.
So that's certainly a strength that I'd like to underline to your viewers here on the show.
Something I didn't know. Now I know, of course. Is there a goal you would like to achieve while serving as Australian ambassador to Korea?
Well, personally, wherever I go, I always try to run a marathon. So that's my personal goal. I try to run a marathon here in Korea when I'm serving here. But I've also heard about the wonderful bike ride from Seoul to Busan. So I've already committed to doing that at some stage.
I see.
But generally, the goal that I have, certainly as a diplomat on the professional side, is to do my best to raise the profile of Australia here in Korea, to promote the importance of our bilateral relationship, but also to underline that Australia is a very close partner for Korea, and that there's so much more we can do in the economic space, and the political space, and the strategic space. We are natural partners in the region, and that's the message I'd like to reinforce during my post.
I see. And could you possibly tell us about your future plans, your nearest future plans?
As a diplomat, it's very hard to map out a future plan because we go from job to job, issue to issue. It depends on the issue of the day. As I said earlier, I don't think I can predict the nature of or the flow of international relations. I think I'll simply do my best here in Korea and see what my job leads me to. But I simply want to focus on doing what I can do during my posting in Korea and then see what my minister wants to do for me in the future.
Now, I have to say that I was able to feel your passion and love for not only the work you do, your work, but also for the two countries, Korea and Australia. And I hope that you make use of your strengths and capabilities to further strengthen the friendly relationship between our two countries. Thank you once again for your precious time and for joining us on Heart to Heart today.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to have been here, and thank you very much to your viewers, and I look forward to continuing to work closely with my Korean counterparts to advance the bilateral relationship. Thank you very much.
감사합니다.
감사합니다.